Hello and welcome to Starting Points, where one thing leads to another. So I want to carry on with looking at the relationship of men and women, in some cases, with horses as working animals. So the first book I'd like to share with you is an old book by Marguerite Henry, and the illustrations are by Wesley Dennis. It's called The Album of Horses. It doesn't look too new, but the pictures inside are still in good shape. So what I did is I took and found where the big horses were, the work horses. Doesn't show a Percheron working here in this particular picture. Well, it is working, and it's probably, if you're doing any kind of balancing or jumping, you've got a broad back to land on. But so the Percheron, the Belgian. Now this seems to be at a fair, and they're pulling, they're contests, but that's because they've also been trained and strong and worked and used. And the Clydesdale, again, they're being shown off, their mane and tail and decorated, and it's a bit of a contest, really. The Shire pulling a log out from the woods. We've looked at the Shire before, and the Suffolk Punch. So they seem to be the five big examples. Misty of Chincoteague by Marguerite Henry. She did a whole book after book about Misty, and here's Sea Star, Orphan of Chincoteague. The island is an interesting place. It's off the coast of Virginia. The border between, on this peninsula, Maryland comes down to here, and this then is part of Virginia. And the island is tucked right in here, and it's only 21 inches above sea level. And the outer island, Assateague Island, helps to protect it. Helps protect it from the wash of the ocean, the waves, and the winds. And but those books, I think they'd probably still be enjoyed by children 9, 10, 11 years old, maybe. This is called Domestic Descendants, and it includes horses along with cattle, cats, dogs, sheep, goats, and chickens. Wild world of animals. And you know that I like this series. And here's something from All Creatures Great and Small about cows, written by James Herriot, with real photographs of him. And but the next after that comes Horses, Donkeys, Mules, and talks about those who are bred for speed and racing of horses. An excerpt from Man of War by Walter Farley, who also wrote many books about horses. So, the heavyweights, they're the only ones that are being shown to sort of at work out here. And then there's working class. This section here on mules and donkeys, it's not a lot of words, but there was some interesting information there. And this is an Amish farmer who often uses horses or mules. The mules can stand the heat a little bit more than some of the workhorses. And after the Civil War, if I'm correct in this, I might not be, but there was an opportunity for former slaves to get 40 acres in a mule. It wasn't going to necessarily be in a particularly easier life in some respects, but that was an attempt to sort of maybe make amends and reimburse, give them a start and a chance. Davis Street, horses, a working tradition. So this is mostly horses that work and doing various things, gathering seaweeds, fish along Prince Edward Island and in New Brunswick. These are people who harness maker, and all the other things that would be needed to. This man's shop in Sackville, New Brunswick, has been closed. I have a former student who teaches there at the university and says it's gone. Jack McKenzie. Well, not the same need. Now this is interesting. They're using tires here. I've seen horse with a wagon and the wagon having tires. Just, I guess, probably much more, wear and tear on a wood with metal around it would be noisy, and this is a lot quieter. So lots of things in the Weir Fisherman in the Bay of Fundy, and so it's in the woods, working on the marshes, working in Ontario, Alberta, etc. This is a novel. My wife and I both read this, and we really enjoyed it. It's not a children's book, but it's about a child. Clive Doucette, actually. Clive Doucette writing about going to visit his grandpa and grandma in the summers in Cape Breton. Reminds me of something I mentioned last time. And so the wagons, the horses, there's a certain amount of upkeep and repair and needed for both. You need veterinarians, you need people who can trim their hooves, it's I think it's certainly closer to extinction than it once was. Wingfield's World, the complete letters of Wingfield Farm. You can't imagine how happy I was when I saw this book. Ned Needles had written a book about Wingfield. His first book was called Letters from Wingfield Farm. And I'd taken our two oldest sons. Marty was home with our two youngest children. And we went to see this. What a production. This man, Ron Beatty, he's the only actor on stage. So it's set up and different scenes, but he plays all the characters. Maybe a little change in this, a little change in that, his voice, his posture. He was amazing. We saw the first 3 of the 7 volumes that Dan wrote, and we loved them. And they were comic, just, well, funny, and sad at times too. The whole gamut. So that's a great volume. We have the tapes of the first 3 as well, and we used to listen to them back in the day, and Marty could hear them too. Sleighs, the gentle transportation. This is Montreal. Now you expect to have horses in rural areas, but in Montreal, well, Carlo Italiano was born in 1920 in Montreal, and he lived, this is the old old part of Montreal. He lived upstairs in some building. You could look down and see all the sleighs. There were cars, but anybody owning a car didn't bother with driving a car in the winter, because you'd have to get it out of your garage and shovel that all out, and and then there'd be more snow. You're talking 10, 12 feet, and then, of course, piling the snow off to the side to create. So sleds were the way to go. And this man, Carlo, was fascinated by them because they were colorful. They each had their functions. The chip wagon, they had a heating system often, and a cooking system maybe, or the nuns. I'll move that over a little bit more, just so. I wanted to show them to you, the knife sharpener, scissors, knives, saws. Vince a bell on his to maybe let people know he's around. The fruit peddler, he can't crawl out. Strawberries, not in the cold. Blankets, some more colorful than others. As the pivot around a corner or turn, the whole sled would come rotating around with it, and I know this is excess to show you, but I was blown away. I never knew about this until I saw this. The milk sleigh, the Royal Mail sleigh. The baked bean sleigh. Here's a little more team, because they're the movers sleigh. Moving heavy machinery, moving furniture, moving, things were, Clydes, Belgians, Percherons were used. And it took a good man to handle them. The grocery sleigh, the farmer's sleigh. Now, he may have come in all the way like this from the country. The pig that he's brought seems to be frozen stiff. The freight sleigh, the brewery sleigh. Some of these are only, both of those had two, a pair. These are the epicure sleigh, which was purveyors of fish, oysters, game, poultry, vegetables. The ragman, Harry the ragman, never needed to call his customers. The sound of his sleigh was different from all the others, and there was no mistaking the dull clunk clunk. Harry had the only horse with cowbells. The snow removal sleigh. The coal sleigh. Everybody was heating with coal. In a place like Montreal, further out, still wood. The Star sleigh, the Montreal Star delivery. The City of Montreal inspector, and just this small sleigh, maybe with furry robes and things to put over his legs. And the spice sleigh, the bread sleigh, the fire hose sleigh. Now, I remember a good friend who remembered that once upon a time, where he lived in New Brunswick, they were picked up in the morning by a sleigh in the winter and went to school. The horse-drawn sleigh, the fire steamer sleigh, and the sightseeing sleigh. I just thought, yeah, there's more uses than what I'd been thinking of, hauling wood and plowing. The horses were used for then, and that's bygone days now. Well, thank you so much for joining me. Until next time, bye for now.